Welcome to this lecture. So in this lecture we are going to make a simple web crawler. So what we are going to do here is we will just fetch the content of the websites. So instead of just getting some of these images or everything, we'll just get only the URL of the particular website, which is the basic usage of a web crawler. So if you have learned about Spider, if you have heard about the Spider from anywhere, that is going to do same as this. So it is going to just crawl in the web page and it will just fetch the URL so that we can attack to that URL and see if it has get or post method. We'll see all about that in the JavaScript section, which will be dedicated section for the XSS attack. But for now, let's see how we can make the simple web crawler with the help of the Python language. So first of all, we'll just skip this request method from the previous lecture, which will just get this URL response and see if that exists or not. It will just particularly send us a request object with a status code of 200. That means that website has been there. That means it is okay. That is status 200 means the okay signal. That means there is the presence of that website. Now in this target URL, I want to include this URL. So this is our test.php.vlnweb.com URL. It is a test website. So let me just insert it here. So let me just remove this because we have already kept that HTTP over here in the request get. So we have a HTTP over here. So I have to make this colon right here. This is the part of the path. So now we have our target URL ready. So let's get the response now first. So let me just get the response as an request. So we have to just pass to this request method first, and we'll just pass this target URL. So we have now passed this target URL. Let's print that response. So what we're gonna do is we have to now see the response in the form of markup language. So if I just go over here and if I just see the page source, you are going to get this content. So this is the URL, or this is the page content that we want to fetch. So this is made by the HTML, which is a markup language. So we have to now fetch the URL from this markup language, or basically from the HTML. So we want to target only those links which have this URL, because these are important. What we don't care is about these images. So web crawler only acts in a way that it has to fetch only the URL. It doesn't care about this image, it doesn't care about this table, border, anything. It will just care about this anchor tag href attribute. So let's go to our PyCharm again, and we have to now see the content. So if you want to just get the content, it is done by this content attribute. So this is basically to get the HTML content, or basically this will give you the content of the web page. So let's see if this can do or not. So if I just run this, you will see that, let me just run this and I'll just go here. Then you could see we have fetched the content of this website. So you could see everything over here. So it is in the single line though, but we'll just make or modify this in a minute. But you can see we have fetched the content. This is a markup, and we have just fetched every content over here from this website. So it has these HTML languages made of the content. It has the width, table, and everything over here. So we have successfully fetched the website content with this simple response, and we just fetch the content from the website in this script. So next thing what you need to do is just modify this script so as to get the link from the website. So we have already learned about one thing, that is the regular expression. So if you just remember in the previous lecture, we have learned about the regular expression and how to use it in our programming language, or basically in our script. So first of all, what you need to do is you have to make use of that regular expression, and to do that you have to import that regular expression, and I'll just say import RE, which is for the regular expression. After we just do that, let me just define one new method which will just extract links. So this method will just extract link, because if you see in our output, there is everything over here. which is unnecessary information. So there is a relational sheet, or there is basically this template, PHP file, everything is there. This is unnecessary. What we really want is only the link, because web crawler is only interested on the link. It will just harvest those links. So that is the main reason we are making this extract link. So from that website we want to extract only the links. So for that we want to return by just refining with this regular expression. So we want to make use of this find all method. We have only learned about the match and the search method in the regular expressions section, where we just give the pattern. So it is same as the match and search, but here what we do is we pass and we search in that sentence or in that content. So here I want to just pass now the pattern. So first argument to this find all is the pattern. So pattern should be inside this single quote. Now I'll just put the pattern over here. So I'll say href, because if you just go over here, all the links are inside this href. So let me just show over here. Then you could see it is here, that is the link is inserted inside this href attribute of the anchor tag. That means we are interested to search for this href tag. So let's go for this href tag. We have to add other wildcard characters too. So first wildcard character will be this colon, and the next one is this question mark. So this is very important. So we are searching for this href now inside this pattern. So it should be inside now parenthesis, because this is not exception, this should be compulsory. We are just saying that this portion should be compulsory. So what we just did over here was we are just searching for href equal to an opening quote. That means we are just making a pattern which will just get this part, which is href equal and the double quote. So we are just matching this pattern. We are finding this pattern in every part or in every content of that document. So we are just saying that get me href equal sign and this double quote in the document. After this pattern is finished, we want the next pattern. And if you just remember, this dot was a wild character, that means anything. So it can be the digit, it can be maybe your alphabetical character. So this dot means every alphabetical character. And if you just remember, this asterisk was any number of character. So this dot was for alphabetical or digit or any character. This asterisk was for one or more character, or it can be also 0 character. So it can be any number of character for this asterisk. And we'll just give the again this question mark. Maybe this is for absence or present at 1. So we have learned about this question mark in the regular expression. If you haven't gone through it, make sure you just check that section and you will just get understanding about these wildcard characters. So it is very much easy over here. So after you just get this pattern, you have to close with the double quote, because if you see here, this href tag is closed with this double quote. So we're just searching for this pattern that equals with href equal to and double quote, starting double quote. We don't care whatever is inside after this double quote. That is what we just saw here. That is anything can be after this single or after this double quote. And after that character is ended, there should be ending with this double quote, so that we just get the URL from that. So we just find that, we just return that from this extract link. So one thing what you can do here is, instead of just making this request over and over, you can simply remove this. You can simply get a response here. Okay, we are just returning, that means we have to first get the response. So we'll just get the response from this request module, and we'll just use this get method. We'll just pass here, that is your URL. So that URL should be sent while we call this extract link. So instead of this request method, now we have to pass, that is we have to call basically this extract link method. So now we have simply called this. So instead of just printing this, now we have to now format this first. So we'll just remove this. So if you see here, here is something that we are finding. So we haven't put another argument in this find all. So if you ever remember, in that case where we just search or match for the pattern in the sentence, the next argument used to be the sentence. but it is not the sentence in this case. We have to search in the document, which is HTML document. So if you want the HTML document, it should be inside this response and content. So we are searching this pattern inside this document, which is just printed over here, which contains everything from this anchor tag, or basically division tag, paragraph tag, everything. So next thing is just to go over here. We'll just now print our href link. So instead of this response, so this is no further the response, it is the link, which is href link. So now we have to just print that href link. So we have completed our web crawler over here. So if you see, what we just did here was we just imported the regular expression to just use this method, which is called findall, which will just see this pattern in this document, because this pattern is to just fetch that URL from the document, HTML document. We don't care any other thing in this document except the URL. So we are just going for the URL, and after just we completed everything fetching from this URL, let me just close this, and now we just return that everything from URL in this extract link. We just get that link over here, we just print that link. So let me just run this real quick. Okay, it is giving us a error because obviously we haven't have here the HTTP. So first of all, you have to have the HTTP, and let it be the actual website. So just make sure you include this HTTP, otherwise it is not going to work. Let me run it one more time, and again it is saying something is missing. So okay, maybe about here we missed, maybe. So it comes because we have to now just decode it. So first of all, let me just decode this with maybe UTF-8, and let's see if this works. This is a decoding technique for the content of the HTML. So let me just run and see if this works. So okay, it is working. So this is giving us the href link. So you can see bunch of a PHP file over here. So you can see much more PHP file. So much of PHP file. You can also see the link over here. So our web crawler is working perfectly now. There was a small problem because of this decoding technique, which you should add in this content, because this is the UTF-8 decoding technique for the HTML parser. So you have to add to this response, and we are just matching with this pattern now. And I have already told about your pattern, that is basically we are searching for href pattern and any character after this double quote, and we have to close with this closing double quote at end. We are just searching for href attribute in the tag, and we just targeting this URL. So next thing what you can do is we can just make use of the for loop, so that we can just make one link in a one line. So what you need to do is, instead of just printing this, let me just comment this out. So if you just see our output, all of the link is in the single line. So if you want each line having a single link, you have to make use of this for loop. So I'll say for link in href link, I want to print a link. So now if I just print again, run the demo, you will see nothing. Okay, it should give you now. So now it has every link in the single line. You can see it has the CSS style too. So you can see the link over here. So we have successfully harvested the link from our web crawler, but this is not actually a perfect web crawler, because you can see it has some of the links but in the form of PHP. So this is not a complete link, it is a relative link. So this link are called the relative link. This is not the complete link. If you just copy this and go, and basically if you just put it over here, this is not going to work, because this is nothing. And this will work if there is a relative path for this. So if you do something like, if you copy this and put this as the directory after this forward slash, this is going to work. So that can be done with this parser. So we have to make use of now parser to join this URL with the link. So we can do that now. So first of all, after we just get this chref link, we can use the URL parse. So in order to just do that, we have to import now URL parse. So if you do something that import me URL parse, this is not going to work, because we don't have URL parse in the version of a Python that is greater than 3. So we have to first import, or I can simply say from URL library. So if you want to work with this URL parse to make this URL look nice or become more like the URL rather than having the relative path, you have to use that URL parse module. So if you do something like import me URL parse, this is not going to work in the Python newer version. So all you have to do is you have to import first URL library, and from that you have to just get this parse, and from that you have to import now your URL parse. So this is the way to import the URL parse. Now you can use your URL parse. So what you're going to do here is we are going to make a new link for those type of relative links which have no meaning whatsoever over here. So if you see, this login.php is alone, so we have to make something like this link for this login.php too. So let's make that. So first of all, I'll just make use of this URL parse. So we have something that is URL join over here, which is the method. So in the newer version you don't have this URL join maybe. So what we can do, let's check for the documentation maybe. So if I do this, okay, we can simply use URL join. So instead of URL parse, I'll just make use of this URL join. So in this URL join, what we want is our target URL, which is this URL. If you see, this should join with this link that we just have here. So you could wonder what happens for this type of link. So what happens if this link is just explored? For this type of link, okay, you can join with these target links, but what if we just find this? So is it going to just combine the two link and make us again the link that is the concatenation of these two links? No. So that is not in the case of this URL join. So it is only going to be active, this part or this statement is going to be active only in the case of the relative link. So it will be active in this part of link, but when it sees that the link starts from HTTP and all of this, then this will just ignore and it will just print this link. So let's see this in the action. So now you can completely see we have concatenate over here. So we have now that was so let me just remove this again and let me show you. So it was the case where we have these relative links. Now we have added from this URL join, and now let me run it. Then you will see completely the new link for each of these relative link. We have added this test PHP, which is our target website, from this parser. So the new way to do this joining is not from the URL parse in the newer version of the Python, it is from the URL join. So we used to do something like URL parse before. So we used to do this something like URL parse, and if should something like URL parse and used to do with URL join. But this is not the case in the newer version. You can simply use URL join. So here you have to first import URL join if you want to use that URL join. So we have now made our simple web crawler, but a powerful web crawler which will just get every test link of the website, so that we can just test for the vulnerabilities in each of these link. We have seen how to get the subdomain of the link in the previous lecture, which was the important lecture 2. So this lecture was also important because we use now regular expression to match the patterns to find the link, or basically the thing we want to match in the document, that makes our link or basically web crawler much more efficient than before. We just join that link so that relative path becomes the complete link. So this will be wrap for this lecture. So in the upcoming lecture we'll see about the JavaScript and how we can just use JavaScript to attack on these type of applications, web applications and websites. So see you in the